The Pittsburgh Steelers have robbed the NFL. One of their most impactful players has decided where he's going to play his football for his foreseeable future. And this has a lot of implications on what they'll be able to do in the 2025-2026 season. My name is Tamir Jean-Charles. This is Steelers Digest, and let's hop right into it. If you're not subscribed, please get subscribed. Only 67% of you are subscribed. The season is now upon us. Now, today, Steelers fans, we are talking about Cameron Heyward. There's been a lot of talk about him holding out, practices by himself. Sometimes he did show up to practice and wanted to practice. If you don't know, he does have a podcast where, he brings on guys like DK Metcalf, Aaron Rodgers, TJ Watt, people like that on the team to just talk about life, talk about football, crack jokes, things of that nature. And he did say that, he didn't know if he was going to be out for yesterday's game against the Jets. I will have a recap about that later on in the day or tomorrow. But I'm not going to talk too much about the game. I will touch on it, just performance-based, because I do want to say something about what happened in the game, just off of an individual standpoint. But the Steelers did, kind of give Cam Heyward a new deal. I guess you could call it that. The problem with this is that, and I covered this in in a couple of videos, a few videos ago, and there was a graph about, where he's getting paid as a top 20 interior lineman. I think he's like 20th. There's guys like Javon Hargrave, Ed Oliver, who had a good game yesterday against the Ravens. People like that who are getting more money than him, which is just ludicrous. It's absurd. But, these contract negotiations are a bit iffy, especially he's 36 now, but last year when he did negotiate his real contract, and, he was in his age 35th season. He was coming off a lot of injuries. So I don't know if he totally believed in himself per se in terms of what he could do and what he could bring. And I didn't think that, I don't think he knew. I think after he signed his contract, that's when obviously he had his all-pro year, and he's trying to come back to the table, and Steelers are just looking at him like, you're just a bit too old to be getting all this money for how many years? We're lucky. I don't even want to say the number, but we're lucky if we get 3 more years of Cam Heyward. You know what I'm saying? As an interior lineman, he's 36 now. Are you going to be playing that position when you're 39? I doubt it. So he really didn't have any leverage. Now, I remember when I made the video, this whole saga, I'm not mad at him, right? These are athletes, and they're trying to feed their families, and they just want to be valued at what they could bring to the team. If I'm an all-pro, not a second team, if I'm a first team all-pro, why am I only making, $15 million a year? Why am I only making $13 million a year? I'm not even top 20 on the list of interior linemen and guys who aren't even touching the stats that I've been touching. So that's another mold to it. But the Steelers did go against something that they don't normally do, and that's having things incentive-wise, just because they just don't want money on the back end coming in. They'd rather just give you what they think you're valued. But they knew that they had to take care of him a little bit. I mean, he's a very important player for the defense. He's a very important player for the team. And like I covered in the last video, he is a team captain. So we can't, if you're in what Omar Khan says, a win now state, where, we've got Aaron Rodgers, we've got the most expensive defense in the league. We're trying to win now. You can't really win now without an interior lineman in this age NFL. You just can't. With important players like Jalen Carter, with guys like that, and the Jordan Davises of the world, and those type of monsters, it's just hard to stop people. You've got to stop the run. right? You just have to. You have to stop the run. And Cam Heyward is a big part of our identity in Pittsburgh, with being a run, stop the run first, then coming in with Blitzburg, on the backside. But yeah, he was on $15 million a year. He gets $3 million in incentives, tied to playoff wins, which is $18 million max. And what I really wanted to talk about this contract is that he didn't get what he wanted. He got nowhere near what he wanted. And this is one of the few odd contract negotiations in really all of sports, like that has failed and backfired. He just came to the table too late when he was too old. Like I think the market got reset a little bit, which kind of messed things up. And people say this all the time. As much as contracts are about play, value, stuff like him being a Walter Payton Man of the Year, not nominee but award winner, being a leader. It's also about timing. That's how Kirk Cousins got his contract, and he gets benched mid-season to Michael Penix, right? It's seldom, I wouldn't say seldom, but it kind of really is seldom about your play, and it's just about do you have the timing, right? Does the team have the cap space? Are you just good enough to warrant the contract you had? And he just wasn't for Pittsburgh. He generally just wasn't for Pittsburgh. And this is a report from, I think, Steelers Wire, and it talks about, he said Heyward told reporters his contract demands were made public, that he couldn't justify playing for his 2025 salary, and that's obviously the $13 million that we were talking about. And even at its maximum, mind you, this isn't even guaranteed money. This is not guaranteed money. This has nothing to, receivers have to catch the ball, running backs have to run the ball, Aaron Rodgers has to make throws, corners have to pick the ball. Like, what I'm basically saying is it's a team effort that he gets his money. He could really play another all-pro season, but if we don't make the playoffs and win a playoff game, he doesn't get his money. And Pittsburgh's always good at making sure when they extend people, they always come out, feeling good about this deal. We're going to give TJ Watt. At that time, he was the most highest non-QB, highest paid non-QB, in NFL history. And then obviously Michael Parsons signed with the Green Bay Packers, and he's now second. But that's a deal you're fine with. A guy who holds the record with Michael Strahan for sacks in a year. Yeah, you can have all the money you want, right? If we're in a win now situation, absolutely, go ahead and take it. But like I said, the deal barely cracks top 20 for defensive tackles. So it's really a play on both sides. Like I said, the Steelers always want to make sure that they get on the right side of things, and they did. But they're a family. I know you don't really say this with contracts. It's always business. But, these guys are a family. He's been here his whole entire career, drafted him out of the Ohio State. So they wanted to respect him. But it's like, I can't pay you all of this money. You want $30-odd million a year at 36 years old. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And he didn't get what he wanted. Which I guess sucks for him, but the reason why I did want to touch on the game is, good game. I'm going to talk about it obviously more in depth in another video, but you could tell the rust from him not, being with the group. 3 tackles. He had a TFL. I don't know why it doesn't show up on the ESPN stats, but he had a TFL. He had a pass deflection. He had a run stuff. He filled up the stat sheet with the limited practice he did get, in the offseason. So that's a bonus and that's a plus, but Cameron Heyward did not get what he wanted. I'm not even going to say get what he deserved because, like I said, there's a lot of factors in what happened with this specific contract negotiations. Pittsburgh dealt with a lot of contracts this offseason, bringing in a lot of new faces. But this was the weirdest one that they had to deal with just because the timing just wasn't right for anybody. I guess for Pittsburgh, it was fine that they don't have to exhaust that many resources. But for Cam Heyward, it just wasn't the right timing. But what do you guys think in the comments? Please let me know. Did he deserve the 30 million? You know, should he have requested a trade if he really wanted, the money that he wanted? We'll see what he says on his podcast. He probably will talk about it. I know he can't deflect from it. He does answer questions from Steelers faithful. So we'll see what he says. I'll have the recap video out in a bit. See you later, Steelers fans.